Thank you, Karen Corlin. Thank you, Minister. I believe this legislation is to be welcomed and that it forms an important part of the economic recovery plan. It is crucial that we support businesses as public health restrictions are eased. Our local businesses are the lifeblood of our communities. I know from speaking to businesses in my own county of Carlow that they have gone through a massively demanding time since March of last year. I don't think, Minister, nobody could have foreseen the fallout from COVID-19, and nobody could have foreseen the way in which our lives could be turned upside down by such health emergencies. But we have adapted and we have learned to live with this disease, and I strongly believe that we as people will come out stronger from this. I have been heartened by the people by local businesses in my own home county of Carlow, the way they have adapted to these trying times. It has been quite inspirational to see how people have come together and worked through this pandemic. And you know, there is, I think, one thing from COVID, I think people really have got such big sense of community and businesses all working together and helping each other, and I think that is crucial, and I think we have seen this because it has been very hard. But returning to the bill, I am fully supportive of the extension of the unemployment wage subsidy scheme until the end of December 2021, the extension and the enhancement of the COVID restriction support scheme. It's also most welcome, and it provides additional support to businesses upon reopening. It also gives certainty to business that are still affected by public health restrictions. And certainty is something that we all most definitely need in these most uncertain times. The new additional business resumption support scheme that will be implemented in September 21 is a most welcome initiative. Businesses will need all the help that they can get as they get back on their feet following the unprecedented time that we have all gone through. This legislation acknowledges the frail nature of firms in certain sectors as they emerge from the impact of public health restrictions. It is also about giving businesses a hand up, Minister, and not just a handout. I welcome the announcement that businesses that remain closed or that are heavily restricted under the public health restrictions may make a claim for additional CRSS support. I believe that initiatives such as the Business Resumption Support Scheme show that this government understands what businesses have gone through since March of last year. We are all in this together, and it is only by working together and looking after each other that we will get through these most challenging times. The extension of the reduced rate of VAT of 9% on the hospitality and the tourism until the end of August 2022. This measure will provide continued support to the hospitality sector, which has been particularly affected by the public health measures introduced, and it will introduce and tackle the pandemic. So hopefully, Minister, this will help. It is in fact that many businesses have not yet been able to reopen, and the extension of the reduced rate will provide for a long period of time to assist recovery in this sector. Sorry now, Minister. The reduced rate of 9% will apply to areas such as the catering, restaurant supplies, tourism accommodation, cinemas, theatres, museums, historic houses, opening of the farms, amusement parks and hairdressers. All of these activities are part of everyday life in our country, and all came to a shuddering stop because of COVID. So this legislation will help these businesses in a practical way as they try to get back on their feet. One thing we have all learned through this pandemic is that we took too much things for granted in our lives. We have been able to gain, I believe, a newfound appreciation for what we have. We are now seeing our world through new eyes. Never again will we take for granted activities such as meeting our friends for dinner or visiting museums or parks. And you know, it is such it's part of our culture, but like everything else, it's something you take for granted, like being able to give your mother a hug or your sister a hug when things were really, really bad. So, look, we've come a long way with the vaccine, and I think these supports, Minister, are just going to be so crucial. The one thing that we have all learned through this pandemic is that sorry, I said that. Now, COVID-19 has disrupted all our lives. And I have just spoken to a constituent of mine today, and this is really something that I was a bit taken back by, Minister. A woman who was highly driven and ambitious, having taken time off work to look after her sick mother, she sought to return to the workforce. She was interviewed for a role to the Community Employment Scheme at the beginning of this year, and thankfully she was successful in getting the position in Carlow. She went through all the relevant stages for the role, including Garda Veta, and was looking forward to resuming employment. However, due to the pandemic, this woman had her starting date postponed not once, not twice, but 3 times. So in the meantime, her contribution for her job seekers benefit ran out. and she was no longer eligible for the payment. As this woman is no longer receiving a social welfare payment, she is now no longer eligible for employment through the CE scheme. The role in Carlow was still available for her, but she is now no longer eligible to take it up. She could have taken up other positions in the meantime, but this was the one she wanted, and now, through no fault of her own, she is no longer eligible for it. As she told me today on the phone, she has been left in limbo by COVID. And these are people who we should not forget as we try to get our country back on its feet. And that's an example of something that, a woman I know really well, a neighbour of mine, and through no fault of her own, through COVID, she's now lost that scheme. And when I went to the department about this and I put in an appeal about this, they told me there was nothing could be done. So, Minister, there's loads of small things there that are being forgotten, and it's unacceptable. And I just feel that if we don't look after the CE schemes and all the other different workers, because through no fault of their own and through the pandemic, they have been forgotten. And I know that part of the bill has housing in it, and I'm a firm believer, Minister, that everybody deserves a home. And I'm sure, in your own constituency where you work, people coming in looking for housing. We need to finance housing. We need to have affordable housing. We need to make sure that everyone that can buy a home is able to, that they meet the criteria. So we need to make sure that when we do pass these bills, that we make sure we look after the most vulnerable people in our society. And I feel that sometimes that they are forgotten. And just look, I know as our country opens, we must be mindful of lessons learned. We must continue to look out for each other, to value each other. And I welcome this legislation, because in a practical way, it will assist our businesses as they seek to return to what they do best. Thank you, Cancrola.